Right now, somewhere in America, someone with a college degree, a clean record, and 5 years of solid work experience just got rejected by an algorithm. They never spoke to a human being. Nobody read their resume. A machine scanned it for the wrong keywords in the wrong font, and quietly moved them to a folder nobody will ever open. That person is going to spend the next 3 hours wondering what they did wrong. Here's the truth. They did nothing wrong. But the system they're fighting against? It was designed quietly, deliberately, over decades to work exactly like this. And what's happening to job seekers right now is far worse than anything the headlines are telling you. Because the stock market is at record highs. Corporate profits are booming. There are endless job listings across LinkedIn and Indeed right this second. And yet, the actual rate at which companies hire real human beings has just hit its lowest point since the 2008 global financial crisis. By the end of this video, you will understand the modern job market better than most hiring managers, most economists, and almost certainly better than the politicians who keep pretending they have the answers. Stay with me. Part 1. How we got here, the world that no longer exists. Now, let me take you to 1995. A small Ohio factory needs 3 new workers. Their options? Word of mouth. A flyer at the community college. Maybe a classified ad buried in the Saturday paper between used cars and apartment listings. They'd receive maybe 10 applications. A human being with a pulse and a judgment call would sit across from each applicant and decide. Companies had to compete for workers. They had to offer real wages, genuine benefits, real careers, or the talent simply went elsewhere. Then came the internet. Suddenly, any company could post a job and reach thousands of people overnight. With zero friction to applying, companies that once received 10 applications started receiving hundreds. Then thousands. The game flipped completely. Instead of companies competing for workers, workers began competing against each other. In a global arena with no walls and no rules. The harder it became to get hired, the more applications people sent. The more applications companies received, the more they automated. The more they automated, the harder it became to get hired. Today, the statistical odds of landing any single job you apply for through a standard job board? Roughly 2 to 3%. You'd need to submit 33 applications for a reasonable shot at one interview. And while all of this was happening, the bar kept rising. Over 70% of job listings now require a bachelor's degree. Only 36% of American adults have one. So, a college degree is simultaneously more required than ever, and less reliable than ever as a guarantee. Because a degree isn't a ticket anymore. It's just the cover charge. You still need experience. Real, documented, professional experience, even for entry-level roles. Companies routinely demand 2 to 3 years for positions that are entry-level by every other measure. You need experience to get the job. You need the job to get experience. The trap was built slowly enough that most people never noticed it closing around them. Part 2. The machine between you and the job. Companies are drowning in applications. So instead of hiring more humans to review them thoughtfully, they built something else. An applicant tracking system, an ATS. If you've ever sent a polished application and heard absolutely nothing back, there's a very good chance you were eliminated before a single human being ever saw your name. Today, approximately 98% of Fortune 500 companies use these systems. Their primary function is not to find the best people. It's to eliminate as many people as possible, as fast as possible at the lowest possible cost. Here's how it works. When you apply, your resume doesn't land in someone's inbox. It gets fed into software that scans for specific keywords, experience thresholds, and salary parameters. If your resume doesn't contain the exact words from the job posting, not similar words, not synonyms, you get buried so deep you effectively don't exist. And it gets worse. Certain fonts, certain column layouts, certain table structures. These confuse ATS software. It can misread your entire work history, skip your most impressive qualifications, and reject you based on corrupted data. Not because you weren't qualified, but because the software couldn't read the file correctly. And even if you clear every hurdle, these systems only deliver the top 10 to 15 candidates to a hiring manager. If you're not in that group, your application sits in a database no one will ever open. Here's the dark irony researchers actually documented. When job seekers learn about ATS systems and optimize their resumes, loading in the right keywords, matching the job posting's exact language, every resume starts reading identically. Keyword stuffed, personality free, interchangeable, and some ATS systems now flag those resumes as artificially generated. You can literally fail for trying too hard. A Harvard Business School study documented something they called degree inflation, companies requiring college degrees for jobs that never needed them before. Production supervisor roles were a striking example. In 2015, 67% of postings required a degree, yet only 16% of people actually working in those roles had one. Same jobs. Massive new barrier. No evidence it improved performance. The machine is getting smarter. The human element is getting smaller. And the gap between you and the person who could hire you is growing wider every single month. But even if you beat the machine, even if your resume clears every filter, you might be applying to a job that was never real. Part 3. Ghost jobs, the listings that were never real. Once you understand this, it will permanently change how you feel about every unanswered application you've ever sent. A significant portion of the jobs you're applying to don't actually exist. Not because the role is unnecessary, but because the company was never genuinely committed to filling it. These are called ghost jobs. In a survey of over 1,000 hiring managers, more than 2/3 admitted to leaving postings active for over a month with no real intention of hiring. 1 in 10 had listings up for over 6 months. Why? Sometimes the decision has already been made, an internal transfer, a friend of an executive, but the company needs to perform the appearance of a fair, open process for legal or HR compliance. Your application is window dressing. The role was filled before the listing went live. Sometimes companies post jobs purely to signal growth to investors. Open listings are free advertising, even when a company is standing still or quietly contracting. Sometimes they're fishing for an impossible candidate, massively overqualified, willing to accept below market pay, and the listing simply stays up forever, just in case. And the job boards themselves? Indeed, Glassdoor. They have zero incentive to clean any of this up. Dead listings inflate their numbers. Volume of available positions is a marketing metric. Companies pay to post. Job seekers don't. You are not the customer. You are the product. So, when you spend a month anxiously refreshing your inbox, then finally receive an automated rejection, understand, the entire thing may have been theater. It was never about you. The audience was never you at all. But let's say you get through. Let's say you beat the ATS. Let's say the job was real. There's still another obstacle between you and anyone who can actually hire you. Part 4. The tests, the hoops, and the compliance theater. Before you speak to a real human being, many companies route you through questionnaires, personality assessments, situational judgment tests, and cognitive evaluations. From Walmart to Microsoft, pre-interview screening has become completely standard. On the surface, it sounds reasonable. But here's what the research actually shows. The content is rarely what's being evaluated. Think about it. Most situational questions have an obviously correct corporate answer. Asterisk, be a team player. Prioritize the customer. Escalate to management. Anyone with basic pattern recognition can figure out what the test wants to hear. The people who score best aren't necessarily the best workers. They're the best at reverse engineering expected responses. The people who answer honestly, who give nuanced, real-world answers, often score worse. References face the same problem. You cannot give a genuinely negative professional reference without risking litigation. So, references confirm dates of employment, job title, and nothing else meaningful. Honest feedback has been legally eliminated from the process. The entire pre-interview stage has achieved one specific outcome. It has systematically removed your ability to make a genuine human impression, replacing it with your ability to perform compliance. Now zoom out, because even if every single one of these problems was fixed overnight, ATS abolished, ghost jobs banned, tests eliminated, there is still a far deeper problem that most people have never seen explained as a connected system. Part 5. The macroeconomic perfect storm. The conditions that create jobs in the first place are being systematically destroyed by a convergence of forces. forces that are all making each other worse at the same time. Force number 1, the hiring rate collapse. The U.S. hiring rate, the share of the workforce that actually gets hired each month, has fallen to its lowest sustained level since the Great Recession of 2008. The last time it dropped this low was the brief freefall at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. Before that, you have to go back to the lowest point of the global financial crisis that nearly destroyed the world economy. The stock market is at record highs. GDP numbers look acceptable. Corporate profits are strong. By almost every traditional metric, this should not be happening. But it is. Force number 2, the tariff inflation interest rate triple lock. About half of all U.S. imports are not finished consumer goods. They're the raw materials that go into American-made products. Steel, rubber, semiconductor components, restaurant ingredients, construction materials. Tariffs raise the cost of all of these. Businesses face a stark choice: raise prices, cut costs, or close. Many are cutting costs. The easiest cost to cut is people. But here's where it compounds. Tariffs push inflation up. When inflation rises, the Federal Reserve keeps interest rates high. High interest rates make borrowing expensive, which kills business expansion. The company that might have hired 10 people this year can no longer afford to. So, tariffs cause inflation. Inflation causes high interest rates. High interest rates kill business investment. Killed investment means fewer jobs created. And because rates can't fall until inflation falls, and inflation can't fall while tariffs stay in place, the whole system locks together into a self-sustaining trap. Force number 3, 271,000 vanished government jobs. This one doesn't get nearly enough attention. In early 2025, through a combination of agency cuts, the DOGE initiative, and a government shutdown, the federal government shed approximately 271,000 jobs in a matter of months. To understand the scale, that's roughly the equivalent of eliminating the entire workforce of a major American city, concentrated in white-collar, skilled professional roles in a single year. And these workers aren't clustered in Washington, D.C. Federal employees work in every state, in virtually every white-collar field: accounting, IT, engineering, communications, logistics, data analysis, HR, legal. 271,000 skilled professionals are now competing for the same private sector roles you're competing for. Force number 4, AI isn't taking your job. It's taking the job you were going to get. Federal Reserve research found that companies are not, by and large, firing existing employees and replacing them with AI. So, when you hear AI is stealing jobs, the data doesn't quite support that yet. But here's what is happening. AI is replacing the entry-level work that companies used to hire new people to perform. A law firm that previously hired 3 junior paralegals for document review now uses 1 senior paralegal to supervise AI output. A marketing agency that hired 5 junior writers now uses 2 writers to prompt and edit AI-generated content. The jobs aren't being eliminated from the existing workforce. They're being eliminated before they're ever created. The entry-level pipeline is drying up. And this becomes catastrophic when you think it through. Senior lawyers were once junior lawyers. Senior developers were once junior developers. If the entry-level training ground disappears, if there's nowhere for new workers to enter and build skills, who are the senior professionals in 15 years? Researchers call this invisible displacement. AI filling roles that would have gone to human beings, never appearing in any layoff announcement, never generating a single headline. Just quietly not existing. The data is sharp. Recent college graduates aged 22 to 27 had an unemployment rate of 5.8% in early 2025, higher than the national average of 4.2%. Even Harvard Business School reported that 23% of its MBA graduates actively searching for work were still unemployed 3 months after graduation. One of the most prestigious institutions in the world. Nearly 1 in 4 of their graduates couldn't find a job. Part 6. The long game: offshoring, automation, and the shape of the future. Before any of the current turbulence, there were longer-term structural shifts quietly eating the foundation of the American job market. They deserve their own honest accounting. Remote work globalized the competition. In 2000, about 3.2% of American workers, about 4.2 million people, worked from home. By 2021, in the wake of the pandemic, that number had exploded to 17.9%. Today, even after major return-to-office pushes, 13.8% remain fully remote. Remote work gave companies something they immediately recognized as extremely valuable: the ability to hire anyone, anywhere, for anything. According to data from Revelio Labs analyzing global hiring patterns from 2019 to 2025, U.S. headquartered companies grew their onshore workforce by 16.7% over that period. Their offshore workforce? 32%, nearly twice as fast. And these aren't call center roles. Companies at the scale of Salesforce are laying off highly paid workers in favor of equally skilled international talent at a fraction of the cost. By 2022, 64% of U.S. companies were either actively expanding international hiring or planning to. If you're competing for a job at a major American company, you may not just be competing with 500 Americans. You may be competing with 500 people globally, some of whom will accept 40% less salary and bring equivalent or superior qualifications. The manufacturing story nobody tells correctly. In 1979, at peak American manufacturing employment, 19.5 million workers, roughly 22% of the entire non-farm workforce, worked in the sector. Today, U.S. manufacturing employment has recovered to approximately 12.9 million. But manufacturing's share of the total workforce has fallen to around 9.7%. And yet, the United States remains the world's second largest manufacturer by output, near all-time highs in what it produces. 7.5 million fewer people producing it. How? Automation. MIT economist Darren Acemoglu's research found that adding one robot per 1,000 workers reduced the employment-to-population ratio by 0.2% and lowered wages by 0.42%. When both direct and indirect effects are accounted for, one new industrial robot displaces approximately 6 workers. Manufacturing didn't leave America. It just stopped needing as many humans. This is why promises to bring back manufacturing jobs ring hollow. Even when factories return, and they return with robots, not the massive human workforces of the 1970s. Service jobs, the kiosk invasion. While white-collar work and manufacturing transform, service jobs are undergoing their own quiet revolution. Bank of America's AI assistant Erica has handled over 1.5 billion customer interactions once handled by human agents. Lyft implemented AI customer service and reported resolution times dropped by 87%. Self-service kiosks are now in 30% of U.S. fast food locations, projected to reach 50% by 2026. Then there are autonomous vehicles. Waymo is already operating fully driverless robot access in multiple U.S. cities. The World Economic Forum predicts autonomous fleets in 40 to 80 cities worldwide by 2035. Autonomous trucks, which don't sleep, don't need healthcare, don't require a paycheck after purchase, are projected to make up 29% of new U.S. truck purchases by that same year. There are approximately 3.5 million truck drivers in America today. This is not a distant future problem. Part 7. The gender gap nobody expected. For the first time in recorded data, the unemployment rate among young male college graduates is essentially equal to their non-graduate peers. A gap that reliably existed for decades, where a degree meaningfully protected men from unemployment, has nearly closed entirely. Why? Decades of programs successfully opened male-dominated graduate fields, STEM, business management, to far more women. These programs worked. The result? Men entering those same fields now face a dramatically larger competitor pool than previous generations of men ever faced. Meanwhile, male-dominated non-graduate fields, construction, skilled trades, physical infrastructure, saw no comparable increase in competition. Before the pandemic, male college graduates had unemployment rates around 5%, while female counterparts sat around 3%. That graduate advantage for men has effectively vanished. There's also a counterintuitive finding around what economists call the glass elevator effect. Men who enter historically female-dominated fields, nursing, education, social work, often advance unusually quickly, sometimes faster than women in identical roles. And when women enter traditionally male fields like technology, they face a different and troubling dynamic. In recent tech layoffs, Women accounted for 44% of job losses despite representing only 28% of the tech workforce. This partly reflects where women were clustered within tech companies, disproportionately in HR, marketing, and corporate culture departments, precisely the departments eliminated first in downsizing rounds. Part 8. The K-shaped economy, two worlds in one. The economy is not simply good or bad. It is both simultaneously for different people moving in opposite directions at the same time. Economists call this a K-shaped economy. When a major change, the rise of AI, a pandemic, causes two groups that were moving together to suddenly diverge. One group moves up, the other moves down, like the two branches of the letter K. Look at the stock market, S&P 500 at record highs. Corporate profits surging. Anyone with a significant investment portfolio is building real wealth right now. Look at the hiring rate, lowest sustained level since 2008. Entry-level jobs disappearing before they're created. A generation of graduates unable to find work. How can both be true simultaneously? Because almost all of the economic activity generating those stock market gains is concentrated in one sector, AI. $3 trillion flowing into AI data centers alone. But unlike the automobile industry, which built entire cities, employed hundreds of thousands directly, and created every business that served those workers, AI infrastructure flows into rows of processors in a handful of facilities. The money climbs. The employment rate doesn't. Consumer confidence data is now diverging along income lines in a historically unusual way. People earning over $100,000 and people earning less used to track each other fairly closely, responding to the same economic conditions. Recently, those lines split apart. The upper bracket remains optimistic. The lower bracket is expressing pessimism not typically seen outside of genuine recessions. And every week, more people who were in the upper branch of that K get pushed into the lower one. Companies have stated they're unlikely to add jobs for the rest of the year. Job mobility has frozen. People are engaged in what researchers now call job hugging, holding on to whatever role they have with both hands, terrified to move. The benefit of job hopping, for years the most reliable way to increase your salary, has nearly disappeared. Nobody is hiring. Nobody is leaving. Nobody is moving. The entire system has seized. Part 9. What nobody else will tell you. Rare insight number 1. The 6-month unemployment cliff. Research published by the National Bureau of Economic Research found something devastating. Callback rates fall off a cliff after 6 months of unemployment. For applicants with no employment gap, callback rates in the study were approximately 7.6%. For applicants unemployed 8 months or more, the rate fell to nearly zero, regardless of qualifications, regardless of resume quality, regardless of how strong the application was. Employers treat duration of unemployment as a signal of unemployability. The longer you've been out of work, the less hireable you appear, even when being out of work for 6 months says nothing about your competence and everything about the conditions you're operating in. The harder it is to find a job, the longer you spend unemployed. The longer you spend unemployed, the harder it becomes to find a job. A trap with no visible exit. Rare insight number 2. The 70 to 80% hidden job market. This may be the single most actionable piece of information in this entire video. According to research from LinkedIn and multiple independent career studies, between 70 and 80% of jobs are filled through networking and are never publicly posted at all. Let that sit for a moment. The majority of jobs, the good ones, the stable ones, the well-paying ones, are filled through direct relationships before they ever become a listing. The best job hunting strategy in the modern market is not application optimization. It's relationship building. Informational conversations with people in your target field. Reconnecting with former colleagues. Creating visible professional content that positions you as knowledgeable and present. Being findable before the listing exists. This is obvious to career coaches and HR professionals. It is almost never taught in school. And it's completely incompatible with how most people are searching for work. Rare insight number 3, the psychological degradation effect. A University of Pennsylvania study restricted participants to different amounts of sleep and tracked cognitive performance over 2 weeks. The group sleeping 6 hours per night saw their performance decline to levels comparable to acute sleep deprivation, but when asked how they felt, they reported only slightly elevated tiredness. The degradation was real. They just couldn't feel it. Career studies have documented the same dynamic in long-term job searching. Chronic rejection, sustained ghosting, and months of silence create a gradual erosion of confidence, self-assessment accuracy, and strategic thinking. People who have been searching for months often become less effective at job searching the longer they search, not because they're less capable, but because the psychological toll degrades the quality of their applications, their interview performance, and their decision-making. Let's bring all of this together, because you deserve a clear picture, not a hopeful one that isn't true, and not a catastrophic one that leaves you paralyzed. A real one. What you can actually do. 1. It's the system, not you. You aren't failing. You are navigating an automated, depersonalized system designed to treat you like a data point. Recognizing that changes everything about your approach. 2. Tap the hidden job market. Up to 80% of jobs are filled through relationships before they're ever posted. Stop optimizing applications. Start building visibility. 3. If your search stalls past 3 months, get outside feedback immediately. Job hunt burnout is real, invisible, and actively making you worse at searching. 4. Know your legal limits. Many non-compete agreements people assume are binding are actually unenforceable. 5. Seek structural stability over prestige. Healthcare, skilled trades, specialized technical roles with growing, irreplaceable demand. The essential economy does not chase trends. This system is frustrating. In many ways, it is genuinely unjust. Real damage has been done to real people who did everything they were supposed to do. Now, the harder truth. If nothing changes, the economy will increasingly generate enormous financial value while employing relatively few people to generate it. AI fills the entry-level pipeline. High interest rates make expansion too costly. The historical playbook that technology destroys old jobs but always creates new ones may not hold the same way when the technology being automated is thinking itself. That history is not encouraging. But here's what has always been true. Across every disruption, every technological shift, every broken system, the people who understood what was actually happening had an advantage over everyone who didn't. You now understand what's actually happening. If this video gave you a clearer picture, share it. Not for the algorithm, because there are people in your life who have been blaming themselves for something that was never their fault. Sometimes the most valuable thing you can give someone who has been struggling is the simple, honest truth. The game really is this hard. You really weren't imagining it. And now you know exactly how it works. I'll see you in the next one.